You're live.
Thank you. Let's call the Finance Committee to order. All members are present and accounted. Alderwoman Finlayson, Alderman Payon, and Alderman Arnett. First order of the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, I reviewed it and it seems to be in order. I'd move that we accept the minutes.
We're talking about the agenda right now, but...
well, that too. All right. The agenda seems to be in order.
All right, thank you.
I'll second it.
I'm wide awake.
All in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Now we'll move to the minutes. Mr. Alderman Payon, the Honorable Alderman Payon is trying to push us through this agenda. So
Absolutely.
He's not drinking a beer, is he?
Diet Coke right here. Has the same effect on me sometimes, though. I would move that we approve the minutes. I've reviewed them. They're very brief and they appear to be in order.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And as usual, thank you, Takia. All right, moving on to the budget requests. First item we have is FT 1-21 transfer for the city manager, I believe. You're right, Sheila. This is hard to see.
Hold on.
I printed it out, so I'm good. But
I'm going to try to open it up and see if I can share my screen with you.
No, I think we're all good.
Okay, if you can, it's good.
And we can see it. So
I cannot see the attachment. I can just see the what's on the agenda.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. All right, so this is a transfer from the contingency fund to the city manager. Madam Finance Director, could you lead us through this?
This transfer, let me make it a little larger so I can actually see it. This transfers $135,650 in appropriations from the contingency account that's in the city manager's office. The additional appropriations will pay for expenses incurred by the Office of Community Caring as intended by Amendment 22 when we did the budget ordinance. After the revision, there will be $460,000 remaining in the contingency account. And we've split this between salary and benefits and contractual services. The first part of the salary amounts will be paid for by the COVID money because this person will be working on COVID issues. The second half of the salary after December 30 will be covered by this $50,000 here. They're getting ready to list the position, so we wanted to get the appropriations lined up.
What are the duties of this person?
So we have I think there are department heads on.
Well, I can kind of respond. I worked with Trish and David on writing a job description based upon what other social workers' positions entail. And I'll be glad to send that to you when I have access to it.
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
I think we all got a copy, did we not, Jody? Of the posting?
I don't know who. Yes, I'm not sure who, and I'm trying to see who all the attendees are, but I can't see them all. So,
Jody, this is Lynn. There is a position announcement. I can email it to the Finance Committee members now, along with Takia.
Everybody received it though, because Claudia sent it to everyone.
I'll resend it.
About 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Lynn, because you know me. If it isn't current, I don't have it. Is there a motion?
Move to approve FT 121.
Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Is there further discussion? I'd like to add, I'm excited about this. I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think we have a lot of finding of our way going forward, but I'm really excited that we're moving in this direction. So I certainly will be supporting this. If there's no further discussion, all those who are in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. All right, thank you. Moving on to FT 2-21.
All right, so this is also a transfer from the contingency account. We are going to need to use some of that contingency account to pay for election expenses. We are required to hire somebody in our elections office to help with the election coming up a year from November. There's a lot that has to be done in advance for both you know what, I have to defer to
Regina.
Regina, she's on. That's what, I don't know if she's on.
Yes, she is.
Everybody to this meeting, but I don't know if she's on. I don't know how to see if she's on.
She is.
Okay, good. She can explain what this person's going to do.
Well, guys, you know what happened when you ran? It has to happen again. So basically, all of the forms for the election, they have to be updated because during the 4-year period where there isn't an election, the legislature changed a lot of the rules and laws and procedures, and so did you guys with the city code. So we have to make sure all the forms are up to date. And with the COVID-19 and the election going back and forth, whether we're going to have polling places or do mail-ins or do all absentees, there are a lot of discussions about how our election is going to take place. So we've been corresponding with Anne Arundel County. We've already sent them an MOU to review, but they're very busy, so they haven't looked at it yet. And we started working on our election calendar, but we don't have the information in it if we had to go to mail-in ballots. So we're working, and there's a lot of paperwork involved with that. So we actually have a person that will be probably starting on September the 15th, and that's why we're requesting the funds. We need help.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of FT 2-21. I do have a question, however.
Proceed, thank you. Is there a second, though? Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Ms. Eldridge, do we get to make a decision about whether our election will be an in-person election or all mail-in?
Well, that's a good question. At this point, the board kind of makes a decision and then they talk to you. I think, you know what? I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't know. It's really early, and we're trying to wait to see what happens with the presidential general election before the board makes a decision as to which way they want to go. Because we typically follow what the county does, and they're not finished yet. And when we spoke to Joe the other day, he said things are changing by the minute. So he's keeping us updated. So as of right now, I really don't have a firm answer to that question. I don't know.
Well, and my second question is, does the Board of Ed weigh in? We changed all of our polling places so we would not be using schools, isn't that?
Yeah, we don't use schools for the city. You're correct. We don't use the schools
for
the city elections.
Okay, so they have no role in this. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Any further discussion?
None for me.
All right. All those in favor of approving this FT 2-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, of course.
Thank you.
Without you, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, we're ready to move on to supplemental appropriations, and the first one is SA 2-21. Got a lot of money in these supplementals this go around.
We got some grants came through, so if you have specific questions, department heads should be on to explain this. This supplemental allocation that we're seeing here appropriates $40,000 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for our existing HSG grant. This amount was not included in the FY21 budget, and it will be used to fund salary of the Maryland Incident Management Team Coordinator for the period July 1 to December 31st. There's no match required.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve SA 221.
I'll second it.
All right.
Had to choke on my words for a minute, but
Is there discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me what OEMD is? Or is that a typo?
That's the Office of Emergency Management.
I know what OEM is. This is OEMD.
I don't know if that means department
It
or
means
not.
department.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys make
All right.
Just a different acronym.
I don't refer as OEMD either, but that's the way it's typed here.
Never seen that before.
this is money that we've already received. Is that correct?
We have already been awarded the money. I don't know in this instance whether we've actually received it.
But we're not appropriating the money, out of the regular budget, the general fund or whatever.
No.
This is a new fund.
This is additional money with additional appropriations.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussions?
Nah, it's an easy one.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to SA 3-21. This is fire.
Yes, this is a supplemental appropriation for $1,524 from the Maryland Institute of Emergency Medical Service Systems. We call this MEMIS. It's for the naloxone grant. It's to reimburse the purchase of medical supplies. It was not included in the 21 budget. There's no match required for this one.
Do I hear a motion?
Well, but this is for what, Jody?
To purchase medical supplies for the naloxone grant.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of SA 321.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions? I would ask the chief, Mr. Romali, or Mr. Spriggs, deputy chief. This is a relatively small amount, and last I heard, we have a fairly significant budget or demand for this. Obviously, this helps, but are we in good shape in terms of having funding for this?
So this funding right here, actually, it comes out of last year's budget. So Jody, unless I'm wrong, this is just going to go to general funds. We've already spent this money, and this grant was for last year's funding year. The 1,500.
All right. So if that 1,500 is to cover something that we incurred last year and we spend it out of the general fund, we will put, yes, this would be extra revenue going into the general fund then to cover that expense.
So it's a reimbursement for Narcan that we purchased last year that the state, that was one of the state ads. So
I did not realize that the 1,500 was for last year.
So do we need to make any sort of correction, or can we just?
So this not knowing that it's for something we've already spent last year, we had this with another issue where we can't really add an appropriation to last year's budget. And this money coming in just would go into the general fund to reimburse for monies that were spent out of the general fund. We have this in another situation too, that I declined to put on a supplemental appropriation because I don't think we can amend last year's budget.
I must say, I thought this dollar amount looked familiar, but I wasn't going to offer that. But what do we need to do, Jody? Do we withdraw this, or
I would just withdraw this.
All right.
If that's the fact that they've already spent this money and it's something they're getting reimbursed for, they already spent, then the money would go into the general fund. We can't give a supplemental appropriation budget at this point.
Committee members, are you comfortable with that?
I am.
I am, but I do have a follow-up question. So does this go into contingency?
Fund balance that would.
No, the grant money is reimbursing the general fund then for something that was spent from the general fund, and I would just put the grant money into the general fund revenues to compensate for that.
Okay.
It is good to see our chief and deputy chief. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. Thank you for being here and for clarifying the situation.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm for that. That's a question we need to ask at this time of year because we are getting some monies trickling in from last year's grants, and it's a little unusual situation saying that we need to add in a supplemental appropriation for something we've already incurred in a prior year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have any other business for fire? I don't think so.
I'm not sure. There's a lot of them here.
Yeah, we do. SA 921 says fire.
Why don't we take those two up now so we can let the chief and deputy chief free for their day? Is that okay with the committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So let's move to SA 9-
Before you move on, you have a motion on the floor for this one, so you have to rescind that motion and withdraw this one. You have to vote on SA 3.
So we're going to withdraw the motion to approve SA 3-21.
Mm-hmm.
I'll move to withdraw.
Fred?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Let's have it. Okay, if with the consent of the committee, I'd like to move to SA 9-21, please. And that's, there are two donations, this and 10.
Yeah. So 9 and 10 are two donations that they want to be able to spend. We add this funding to the general fund budget, and then we increase the appropriation so they can spend the donation.
I move that we approve SA 921.
And 10?
Yep. And 1021. Absolutely, both of them.
They're both donations, Sheila.
Yep, small amounts.
One's for 100 and one's for 50, I believe.
Yes, I'll second.
Are there questions or discussion?
Is now the time for me to filibuster this one?
If you wish, if you want your house set on fire.
I do have a question. I do have a question about SA 9. It says fire retired K9. What does that mean?
So
I know what a K9 is, and I know what retired means.
Jody and I have a conversation later this week about this account. This account is a donation account that's set up for our canines that are retired and have been taken over by their handlers. While the dogs are in service, the city of Annapolis provides canine care for them. So we pay for vet services. So as the dog gets older and we retire the dog, we no longer pick up those canine services. And as the dog is older, those services sometimes get very expensive. So we had set up a donation account, and this comes in from public donations years ago so that we could help alleviate some of the canine costs. We had a retired canine. The handler had to pay $3,000 just 2 weeks ago for this care, and that's on the handler now. It's not on the city. So this account was set up for that, but I believe we're going to be doing this different because the former city manager and the finance director did not like the word revolving accounts. This used to be an account that would stay open until then, but apparently we're going to do things different, and we're going to work that out with finance.
So, in other words, the handler can submit their bills or receipts or whatever and be reimbursed through this account.
Yeah, typically we can't reimburse the entire amount, but they get at least a portion of it, and that's what this account's used for. Yes.
Why can't you reimburse the full amount?
Well, there was only $5,000 in the at one time.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a large amount of money that's in there, and it depends on the cost at the time. I mean, we have some where they've had to go to cardiologists, canine cardiologists that have been extremely expensive, and we can't pick up those costs. But we try to help out the handlers with those.
Okay.
So Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't cover that anymore, is what you're saying?
So they do not, but we are looking heavily into pet insurance. Just to be that they
working dogs.
Working dogs. But
seems like a good idea
out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought about that, and I can't quite make it work for my own dog, but it seems like this would be a great situation for that.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for asking that question, Sheila, but I believe the issue before us is these to get these two donations appropriated. Is there any further discussion on that?
No, I just needed clarification.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Are we ready for a vote, committee?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
All in favor of recommending approval for these two essays, 9 and 10, signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. All right. Thank you. And we can let you go back to your day.
Thank you very much.
Waiting till the end. All right. Getting back in.
Thanks, fellas.
Yes. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is SA 4-21. And this is OEM.
Yeah, this is an OEM grant appropriating $20,754 from FEMA to the 2020 Emergency Management Performance Grant program for COVID-19 to fund expenditures for COVID-19. This must be some additional funding we just was not included in the 21 budget. And a 50% match is required and will be satisfied by applying some of the OEM personal service salaries.
Again, this is money that's already been appropriated. Is that correct?
No,
it's extra grant money. And I believe Director Simmons is on the line of, that's one name I can actually see.
So it's new money and we need to recognize it and appropriate it. So it's pretty much the standard fare for the supplemental appropriations. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of SA 421.
Can I have just a minute? It's for personnel, for salaries. All right, I'll second that.
Are there questions or discussion? I see we have Dave Mandel on. Always good to see you, Dave. I don't know, it seems like this is fairly straightforward, but if you have anything to tell us about this, we'd be happy to hear it now.
Absolutely. I believe the director is also online. Director Simmons.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see. Yes. Director Simmons.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I guess I can see his. Oh, never mind. He just signaled to me that he wants me to take over. So, yeah, this is one of those cases where no one anticipated, obviously, a COVID or anything as the previous year's grant cycle was being approved. But MEMA came to us in the spring and they said, we get EMPG every year, but they said, we have a new grant that you've never seen before just for COVID. It's EMPG-S, so supplemental. They're giving us an extra $20,000 and change in funds just because of COVID for COVID-related expenses. So it's just like the EMPG grant that we get every year, but this one is a little bit extra and it's dedicated to COVID costs.
Thank you for that. Committee, are there questions or are we
not for me.
Ready for a vote? All right.
Ready for a vote.
All those in favor of recommending approval of SA 4-21 signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Thank you, David. Thank you for all that you're doing, and stay safe, please.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to SA 5, Planning and Zoning. This is a whopper. Big money. Jody, you're on mute. Oh, but Dr. Nash is here.
Right, and this is, I'll let her explain this supplemental appropriation. I have to go on mute because I have a window AC unit here that keeps blowing and I'm sure it's interference, so.
Dr. Nash, you hit the jackpot.
Yes, well, it is good news. We've received a grant from the federal government to do a resilience planning study, and it's largely to look at the Navy facilities and around that installation but it's also reaching into City of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County to look at how that particular region can be more resilient in a variety of ways, with a variety of definitions of resiliency, and plan for capital improvements in the future. And we're specifically right now focusing on improvement to our traffic signals so they can all be coordinated in the event of an evacuation. But we're going to be looking at a lot of other resiliency strategies as well.
So if I may opine for a second here, committee, but Dr. Nash, in a different venue, the city manager, Gerald, said you were taking on another duty. I'm becoming concerned about all the things that we're piling on planning and zoning. Do you have the staff and the resources to, this is a big amount of money and a big project. Are you okay with being able to take this one on? It's a softball. It's a softball. I
appreciate the concern. Yeah, it is going to be a lot of work. Jackie Gild is going to be helping me, and as are a lot of personnel in Public Works, and not to mention Zoe Johnson, our liaison at Navy. And the bulk of the money will be used to hire a consultant. Of course, that's also work to manage a consultant, but sure. I feel like it will be manageable once that contract is executed.
I will just say again, if you want to call Uncle on needing more resources, I'm your guy. So I really am watching things pile up, and I do have some concerns about that. So
yeah, just call Uncle Ross.
Yeah, right. Doesn't mean that it'll do anything, but I certainly am. I am watching it and am concerned. But
I appreciate that. We could use about 10 more people.
Okay. Will you take 3?
I would, as a compromise.
Right. So Director Gerald is listening to this. I'm sure he's cringing. Alderman Arnett.
Shaking his head.
All right. So are there questions or comments from the committee?
No, none from me.
Well, I do have a question. Dr. Nash, you said most of this is for a contract or for hiring someone to do the study?
We'll be hiring a consultant firm with expertise in resiliency planning and land use to be doing the study itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Is there a reporting back to the source of these funds or to the council, or what happens to this study after it's completed?
There are reporting requirements per the federal funding guidelines. I'm happy to give you guys periodic updates. I'm also hoping to use this money to get federal funding for future resiliency projects. And I think that's pretty promising, because once you're in the pipeline, it's a lot easier to get funding. So I'm excited about this grant and hoping we can leverage it for a lot of future projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is the committee ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All those in favor of this recommendation signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Committee, I noticed that we have another one for planning and zoning, SA 821. Would you mind taking that out of order, and while we have Dr. Nash online?
Mr. Chair, we also have 7. SA 7 is planning and zoning also.
Yeah, I said the wrong thing. Yes.
Yeah. 7. But yes, absolutely.
Yes. All right. So, Dr. Nash, if you could explain this one to us, or Director Dickinson, whichever is appropriate.
I'll give you a summary on what this one is, and then this is the community legacy money. We have we have to appropriate $200,000 of the Department of Housing and Community Development for Community Legacy Grant for Universal Lodge number 14. It was not included in the 2021 budget. I think it was the situation where we had appropriated the older community legacy money, but not the newer. And we have two pieces. We have the old stuff that we're using that we can use for any of these things that we'd like. And then there's the new money that she's designated for this Universal Lodge. And we had appropriated it through the budget in 20, but we needed to reappropriate it for 21, but we only reappropriated the old grant. So Teresa Wellman called us out on that, and we need to get this second piece appropriated.
I have a question. Jody, I don't, excuse me, I don't understand old and new.
So there was an old community legacy program where we had a couple $100,000 left in our accounts, and the grantor said, okay, you can keep that bit of money and use it towards certain things. But Teresa Wellman has told me it's not actually called community legacy anymore. And if she can get on the line, that would probably be helpful. She could explain where that old pot of money came from. Then in the spring, community legacy had not gotten any new funding for a couple of years. But this last spring, we got a new grant of $200,000, and Teresa Wellman was allocating that to this Universal Lodge project. And we did come to you in the spring for some of that funding, but when the fiscal year rolls around, you lose that appropriation unless we reappropriate it. So when we gave you the budget, when we proposed the budget in FY21, we had the old piece in there, but not the new piece.
And the new piece is 200,000.
Yes, they're both throughout the same piece, which is why it's kind of confusing.
But is there confusion between fiscal 20 and fiscal 21 here, or is this all fiscal 21 money?
Oh no, I have to reappropriate the money for 21 because we haven't spent it.
And will this action do that?
Yes.
All right. Are there other questions from the committee, or Dr. Nash, do you have any comments you wanted to offer?
I can clarify that it's old grant money that instead of giving back to the agency, they let us keep it and reappropriate it to a different project. And it's now called Sustainable Communities instead of Community Legacy, but it's basically the same program.
Committee, are we clear on all of this and comfortable?
Clear enough.
Yeah.
All right. So given that, all those in favor of recommending SA 7-21 signify by saying. Before you take
a vote, someone needs to move to recommend favorably.
I'll move approval of SA 721.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. Now are you ready to vote? Thank you, Takia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Now, does that all for planning and zoning? Let me see.
No. SA 8.
No.
SA 8. All right. SA 8. Yes. All right. So, gee, this is such a small amount of money after dealing with these others. First of all, is there a motion to recommend approval of SA 8-21?
Move approval of SA 821.
All right. I'll second it.
Are there questions or comments from the committee? Do we need an explanation from either finance or planning and zoning?
No, it looks like another one that's, allocating grant money. So it's nothing really additional.
Anybody?
I think I do have a question for Dr. Nash. The Conservancy Board, do they have use of any of our critical area funds?
So first, this is the money that the state gives us for administering the critical area program, which is a state law. And the amount's gotten smaller and smaller over the years. That's why it's only $3,000 now. So it basically goes to pay the salary of our staff that works on critical area. And it pays like one day of that. So, just kidding. But so though, to answer your question, we do charge we do sometimes accept fee in lieu if someone can't do all of their critical area required plantings. In the past, we have only been able to use that for planting trees in other critical area locations, and it was pretty limited. But we are very, very close to an MOU with the Critical Area Commission that will allow us to use that money for other projects that are related and defined in the MOU. In that case, the Conservancy Board and the Office of Environmental Policy will have access to those funds to do other projects that are related to improving the environment and water quality, but not necessarily tree planting.
Okay. Thank you.
Committee, are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Hearing
yes.
All those in favor of recommending SA 8-21 signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Good. Thank you. Dr. Nash, just in passing, while I have FaceTime with you, I did ask Jacqueline Lee to change the membership of the task force to your recommendation. Thank you for that.
Oh, okay.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. So anyway, just while I had you here, I wanted to mention that in passing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for being here today and helping us through these items.
Mm-hmm.
We have one left, I believe, which is SA 621, which is significant amount of money for, this is saying the mayor's office. Director Dickinson, can you talk us through this?
Sorry, I have to keep my mute button is now hidden, so
Yeah.
to get to. This supplemental allocation appropriates $55,337 from the State of Maryland Governor's Office Crime Control and Prevention. It will pay for a part-time project manager through June 30, 2021. And this manager will partner with the Annapolis Police Department to develop program infrastructure for enforcement and human services access. And it was not included in the budget and no match is required. And I'm not sure who is going to be here discussing it. This is a
Yeah, because this says the mayor's office, not the police department. So I'm kind of a little confused there.
Lynn, do you want to discuss this one? Are you familiar with this one?
I would leave it to the mayor's office, I think, to answer any questions you may have.
If you give me a minute.
So this grant was awarded by the like it says, the Office of Crime Control and Prevention to implement the LEAD program in this city. So it's a police, or it's a law enforcement evidence-based methodology, but it'll be run out of the mayor's office in conjunction with the police department.
I'm confused.
So
Yeah, me too.
This came through Chief of Staff, and I don't know what Adetola's title is, Mr. Ajayi. So if they're not here to speak, I don't know if City Manager Gerald can talk more.
Let me check and see if the Chief of Staff is available. I just saw her down the hall. Let me see if I can get her on the call real quick.
I'll check, David.
It feels very much like this should be in police.
It's something very particular, and I don't recall the details, and I don't have the backup in front of me, just the sheet that you see.
Is this something we applied for, or did the state?
Yes, it's something that they applied for.
I heard Lynn say something about a LEAD program or something.
Yes. So yes, it is something that we applied for. And the grant is a Department of Justice grant to the state. And then we are a sub-grantee of the state. And I believe there are 4 or 5 other jurisdictions that receive the same grant, but it is to implement the LEAD program, which is an evidence-based methodology for crime reduction and human services.
I'm not familiar with the LEAD program. What does that, I mean, I know LEAD certification for architecture, but.
Oh, there's Susie. So she can.
You're on mute.
I think Susie got on.
Hi.
Hi. Tell me the question again, please.
Well, we're confused why
it's that time.
Why this is in the office of the mayor as opposed to in the police department. We don't know exactly what it's doing.
This is a 3-year grant. Have you gone through that? This is a 3-year grant. And the reason it's in the mayor's office is because we applied for it. It was one of those things where we were working with the governor's office of crime and whatever it is. And they recommended that we apply for it. It was a 1-line email that Tola found. It was sort of, to be perfectly honest at the beginning, it was sort of a lark. Why not apply for it? We did, and we're pleased and a little bit surprised to receive the grant. So it was awarded by the governor's office to the mayor's office, which is why it's now in the mayor's office. And it is a grant where one works with the police department. So it's not as though it's exclusively in the mayor's office. We are the kind of the managers of it.
So I'm intrigued because, as you know, we've been discussing this notion of moving from arrest to assist. And if this is something that is of that nature, I'm certainly enthusiastic about it. But it just feels like it's $55,000 floating in the air right now. You say Tola will be managing this?
He manages it. I oversee it. And the 55,000 or whatever that is, it 55 or 57 anyway, that is the initial first-year grant. And then the next 2 years and they give you your money. You can kind of take it at a year at a time. You do okay. Mm-hmm. What essentially this first year is kind of working out the plan for the program and hiring a coordinator to do that. And that's what we will do with this first step.
Hiring a coordinator, is a contract?
Yes. Yes.
But what is the LEAD program? Is that what it is? LED?
Yeah, no, it's LEAD. It's a law enforcement
assistant. Yeah,
assistance. I can't remember but that's what it is. This is in several individuals, both on the council and in the administration, have looked at or thought about how can we have community service wrapped into our police department and or supporting our police department or separate from our police department. It's essentially looking at that, and it's not department centric. It is programs. It's service or program centric. That makes any sense?
Well, it kind of does, but it feels like it's in the same area as other things, like this social service person that we're trying to do for the Office of Community Caring. And for me, at least, I won't speak for others, that stem from, if we're changing the way we're policing to giving people a criminal record, to giving people another chance and some help, I'm all in favor of that. This has some of that feel to me, but there's just no specifics here to sink your teeth into. Rhonda also has a lot of ideas about similar sorts of things. I would hope Chief Jackson has similar ideas. So it's hard to, I'm not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. $55,377 of part one of 3 increments is certainly good, but I guess I do have some concern, and I guess I would speak to the city manager on this. I have some concerns that we're coordinating all these efforts. It feels like there's little pockets of things going on here and there. And to be, I guess, direct about it, I don't really have a good idea of all the things that the staff are doing in the office of the mayor. I have a good feeling about it, but I don't have a substantive notion of what all these different things are. And for me, I'd like to have a good feeling that these things are being coordinated and focused so that we're not having pockets that aren't working with each other to a common purpose. And I think we can define a common purpose, and I would like us to do that, but I'm not feeling it right now. And I would turn this over to committee members. I mean, if I'm singular in my feelings on this, then I'll let it go. But I think this is a very important area. It's critical. We see people shooting other people in the back 7 times all over the country. We don't want that going on. We really want to get people out of situations that make crime and criminal activities their only recourse or more attractive than other recourses. And it's a huge area. And I think we're on the cusp of a huge social mind change. I mean, the only silver lining of all of these killings of people is everybody's seeing it now. And you see, when you see the protests, you see, I think, at least as many white people in the protests as you do black people. And that's a good thing. But this is money where we can jump on that momentum and get focused and do good. So I guess I would really feel I'd like to have a better sense of what's going on here. That doesn't mean I want to vote against this, but
yeah, I don't know if you have all the paperwork in front of you.
We don't.
We would be happy to give that to you. This is a design by the governor's office. This isn't I mean, it's within their construct. So it has a pretty specific kind of 4 walls. And as I said, this is the beginning, but it's the best. I don't have that in front of me. I wish I did, but because I think it's alternatives looking at that or looking at what, and it certainly includes the police department in that process. It doesn't, my recollection is that as the governor's office designed it, it doesn't particularly look at the kinds of things we are already looking at, that Alderwoman Finlayson and Pendle Charles have suggested. But I don't think that means we can't include that consideration. It's just that we're working from some other kind of direction. And we can look and see, and all of that is for the programming part, which is not this first year. It's the second and third year.
Let me ask Alderman Payon. Fred, is the Public Safety Committee aware of this, and has it been part of your discussions? This is one of the places where I have to tip my hat to Teresa Sutherland. I like our committee structure, but sometimes I don't think we have good cross communication or pollination between the committees, and this does feel to me like something that public safety should at least be aware of, if not coordinating on this.
I agree with you. We haven't met as a committee, I think, since June. And the short answer would be we have not discussed it or talked about it.
So I can tell you though that Tola has discussed it with Rhonda as her role as chair. She's very, very familiar with that, with this whole program. And probably like others, she's thinking of where she'd like to spend the money in the next year or two. Yeah, and we'll have to see how that works. We're not there yet.
at least we all want to make the investment. I just am, and committee, if I'm beating a dead horse or off on a tangent, pull me back. But I really feel that we do need to have much more coordination and focus than is my sense that we have. But
Well, do you want to put off the vote?
Well, I mean, I hate to turn and delay things and turn down money, but I really would like, and I guess I would turn to both Susie, but also David Gerald. I just feel like there needs to be some.
I was just sitting here listening, so I wasn't gone. I was just sitting beside Susie listening.
Back in the hot seat.
Well, before Susie leaves, I have a few questions. Is she gone?
Yeah. No, she's not. She's
Okay. Can I ask my questions before?
Of course, please.
Because I think you're on the right track. I'm a little confused because we have all these different silos and never do they seem to come together for a coordinated effort. Susie, is this out of the office that's run by Glenn Fuston? He heads the governor's Office of Crime Prevention.
No, this is criminal justice of some sort. And I can't remember who the person is. That, again, that's in your materials or in the materials for that went to the finance office. I don't know whether you have them.
I do not.
We do not.
I think probably, and as I said, I'm sorry, I don't have them in front of me either.
Is there any sort of match to these funds or any sort of expectation of city dollars?
No.
Okay. And is there a job description that's attached for this position that you're going to be filling?
We have begun to develop that, but we haven't processed it all the way through the city. But yes, there's a draft.
Okay. I would suggest that Tricia be brought into that discussion. And I'm sure I don't need to say that. David's sitting right there.
Yeah, she has been. She's been involved with that discussion.
Okay.
Mr. City Attorney, did you have something to speak to this?
Yeah, I think this is the position that we reviewed the contract for, which had responsibilities. This is the Community Support Navigator, Susie? Ms. Pratt, that position?
No, that's a different position, Mike. Okay. I'm sorry, I know there's a couple of new positions. That's a different one.
All right.
But I do believe Ashley's been involved, so I'd have to check that myself. But
we reviewed all of them. I just don't know which one is which right now. Right. But I just wanted to. I was going to add something if we didn't have that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, when do all those positions, and this is what I think Ross is talking about, and I'm talking about also. When do we talk about where the funding comes from for all of these positions that are being created?
In the case of the positions that we've talked about so far, they are either coming in from the mayor's budget that you passed in the budget, or they are coming in the case of the educators from the CARES money. So it's either money you've already appropriated to the mayor's office or the CARES money. The most at this point is from the CARES money. And those are the people, this is a wonderful program. This is where we've got 5 Spanish speaking and 5 African-American, what we're calling educators. They are going out doing surveys and trying to make sure that we know where people do not have the information about COVID and resources. It's an excellent program, and we're just starting it. It's one that Laura Gutierrez created and worked with both Lynn, who's doing the CARES money, and the Office of Law to create the positions, and the finance office, I think. But it's just now, it's probably been going now for a week. And we're already getting really good feedback about the fact, first, that the city's doing outreach, which is what we want them to do, and the information that they're getting.
Well, it sounds like it all sounds like wonderful programs. I just wonder when we're supposed to find out about these things.
Right. Well, I'm sorry about that, but we can certainly make sure you have the information.
So, committee and city manager Gerald and staff coordinator Smith, I guess I'm really torn because I don't want to say no to what is the first part of significant money. I certainly want to encourage what it sounds like is going on, but I am concerned that we have a lot of disparate efforts that are going on that may well be fully coordinated, and I and my colleagues on the council are just unaware of it. And so I don't want to get in the way of that, but I do feel a need to make sure that we know about all of these things, first of all, but also that there's a coordination. It's good that the safety committee chair knows about these things, but the rest of us, including a member of the safety committee, don't seem to be aware of it. And I think that's part of our stewardship role as the city council, is to take this higher level overview and to make sure that we're coordinated and we're being efficient and economical in all of our activities. So my feeling at this point is, since we're meeting again fairly soon, unless there's some jeopardy of bringing this back to the Finance Committee as the focusing mechanism, but also inviting the Public Safety Committee and any other appropriate committees like the community welfare groups and so forth. I do think this is a lever to try to get some comprehensive sense of what's going on. So that's where my head is, but I would...
Mr. Chair, can I suggest, I mean, this is literally a person and it's just the beginning. So, and plus the fact, I'm sorry about not having the materials, both for me and for you. I think that's a function of everybody being around, and what used to be fairly simple is not so simple to make sure you have.
I hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would be best if you could, please, to proceed to push this back to the council. And I'm going to make you a commitment that you're going to know more and be involved. This is early, really early. It's establishing a person who can coordinate and work on the plan of what we do next. All of that is set for next year. It's not even, it's probably June of next year, or maybe even the end of next year, before we have to really look at what it's doing. Now it's a concept, it's a grant, and a coordinator for this moment.
For what it's worth, Mr. Chair, Public Safety meets on in the late afternoon of September 14th, the same day as the council's next meeting. I think that's before the Finance Committee meets again. I mean, do with it what you will. I'm quite likely to support this, whether we vote today or sometime in the future. But I don't really blame you for wanting to get more information about it. But for what it's worth, I'm sure we'll be taking this up on the 14th if requested by you.
Well, yeah.
If I could just add a little bit more to kind of fill in the picture that we're trying to present to you. So you brought up the Office of Community Caring, which I think we're going to call the Office of Community Services. But right now we've been working with Alderwoman Finlayson, with Alderwoman Pendel Charles, and others. And I think everybody agrees with the step that we're taking, which is, I think, the necessary first step, which is we're advertising to hire a social worker. We don't want to jump in and hire too many people for that. Number one, we don't have money to do that right now. But number two is I think we need to figure out what's going to be sustainable for that office. And we think that at least a social worker will be sustainable and will help to build that office and for it to become what it's going to be eventually. So again, we're advertising for a social worker, and we're going to hire that. We're going to use the CARES money and apply them towards all the COVID-related items, at least through the end of the year. The council set aside $135,000 in the budget for that community cares function. And so that will carry that person through the end of the fiscal year. So I guess my thought is that we use that position to start building that, and probably use this lead position as well to inform what that office is going to look like, how big it needs to be. You know, there was discussion of having 3 or 4 people in that office. Ultimately, I don't know if that's the right size or not. Maybe that's too big. Maybe it's not big enough. But we definitely need to define what that office is going to do, where they're going to reside, and how many people they need to have. And I think that's the right first start, is to hire the social worker and then tie in with this lead person as well to look at the law enforcement side. That's a part of it that Rhonda's very interested in, as you all know, is the law enforcement side of community services. So I think that this ties together nicely with that. And then we'll come back to the council or to the finance committee periodically as those deliberations and discussions go along, so we can make presentations on what we think it should look like, and get feedback on what you all think it should look like. But that's what's going on right now.
But my point is, this is hiring another part-time person. I said it before, I'll say it again. I pray and I hope we're at the cusp of a major change in this country of how we do things across the board. First, we got to stop shooting people in the back. But secondly, we have to do coordinated things that help people and take them out of situations of peril. We have our own small role here in the city of Annapolis. I just want to I really hope that we can get this focused and well coordinated so we get the best bang for the buck. I think I hear my committee members saying they've heard my point. I think they share it to some degree, and I'm more than happy to move forward with a vote on this, but I really do want to make sure I've registered with you and with Susie Smith that there's an appetite on the part of at least some of the council members that we be part of the loop and that we be as effective as we can in coordinating all of these different pots of money. Money is flowing right now. It's not always going to flow. And so we really do need to have the biggest bang for the buck. So if that message has been conveyed, and I'll ask my colleagues on the committee, I'm certainly happy to call for a vote on this. But I do have some real visceral concerns that we need to do more to make sure we're being effective.
Mr. Chair, I think this is something I would like to support. However, I'm not there yet. I would like to see the documentation that supports the program. I am sure it's a great program, and I think we deserve to know what it is.
Yeah.
I think we should have it in front of us, as we're having this discussion. And I'm very concerned that this just feeds to us not getting the information and not being able to connect the dots. I want to see what documentation, I want to know what the LEAD program does and what the job description looks like.
So we meet again on the 16th. I would ask Susie or Jody or David, if we defer this vote until the 16th, get the background materials, I promise I would do due diligence to read it and understand it. Is that going to in any way jeopardize this?
So I'm not running the program, so I can't tell you if that jeopardizes the grantor or the intended expenses that we're going to incur. We've sent you the information that we received in connection with this application. We sent it in an email just a few minutes ago. So you should all have it in there, although you're probably going to want to open it up and spend some time reading. And what I think you're also saying is you want to see how this all coordinates together with the other efforts as well. And that's something that I can't provide you. That's going to come from kind of pull all these pieces together.
Well, Alderman Arnett, I think it doesn't jeopardize the money at all. It just delays, because if you approved it today, it would go to the council meeting on the 14th, and then we would be able to move forward with the position. If it goes on the 16th, then it gets pushed back, I guess, to the special meeting, as long as it can stay on consent on the 28th. But yeah, that's the impact, is it delays by a couple of weeks moving forward with the grant.
Jody, and committee members, council members, Katie Connolly just sent you all an email with some background information, she said.
Yeah, but as has been said, I think we need time to look at it and understand it. My inclination is to defer this to the next Finance Committee meeting, or if there's a critical issue, to schedule another Finance Committee meeting as soon as we can do it, which would be at least 3 days from now. I don't want to jeopardize the money. I care. I support these kinds of efforts, and I care. But it's because I care that I think I really want to know more. And I do think that we really do have to have more coordination of these efforts sort of while the iron is hot and the money is flowing. And I'm going to admit that I'm kind of out of the loop and ignorant of all of these details. I would note in passing, this would be a wonderful thing to be in the city manager's update.
Well, I'll move to postpone the vote.
I'll second it.
All right. Is there any further discussion? And
I think we've discussed this one out.
Right. So David or Susie, if there's a need to do something more quickly than the 16th, I think the committee is open to doing whatever we need to do to facilitate. But otherwise, I would call for the vote on postponing till the 16th.
Yeah, look, I'm just reviewing what Katie sent us about 10 minutes ago, and it's really pretty detailed, but it's a little much to go through, right here, right on the spot.
Right.
So I think if it doesn't make any difference, then let's just do it at our next meeting.
All right.
Yeah, and
that would be an aye.
Just one other note, Susie has left, but she said if you have any questions when you see the materials that Finance has, please let her know, and she'll be happy to provide any information that's needed.
Yeah, I want to make it very clear, this is not in any way a criticism or a desire to obfuscate or delay. This is a genuine interest in knowing more and being supportive. So I don't think this asking for more time is a negative in any way. And if it is a complication, we're willing, I think, to meet as soon as we can to dispatch this if we find out time is of the essence. So having said all of that, and thank you, committee, for this discussion, all those in favor of the motion to postpone to the next Finance Committee meeting signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. All right. I think that was a very good discussion. Thank you, committee. I believe we're through with all of the supplemental appropriations and ready to move on to the legislative section of the agenda, which is one item, which is Ordinance 030-20, which is quite a long ordinance and full of technical stuff, but I think the two exhibits, for me at least, 1 and 2, help make this very clear. I guess I would throw this over to the finance director to tell us what you think we need to hear about this.
So this is the annual bond ordinance. The legislation provides the authority to the city manager and the administration to issue debt on behalf of the city to finance the capital projects that we're seeing in the capital budget, anything for FY21 or prior, for which we have not yet issued debt. Exhibit 1 is a useful tool in that it lines up all of our capital projects, and then the two columns in the right that are a little bit darker shaded, those ones tell you how much. The last shaded column is what we're asking for authority to issue. This is the appropriations that are financed by this ordinance. And you look down that list to see how much that would be the maximum amount of authority we're asking for. Of course, the projects never spend as fast as what's in the program, so we would not be issuing that total amount. It would be something probably substantially less. We are getting ready very soon to either go out to issue bans, a short-term ban for this amount, and we're going to try to get everything settled before the November election. So it's of the essence here, and I'm hoping that you will recommend this for approval to the council.
And this isn't the first time we've seen this. We did it during the budget, and we certainly had discussions of it when it was introduced on first reader. We've also heard from both you and the city manager that you will be parsimonious and issue only what needs to be issued, but this keeps us within our debt service ban.
Right. So
we had counsel from bond council that we would stay within the ban. We get close, I think.
I think you mean debt affordability.
Yeah, the affordability. So for myself, I'm comfortable with what's presented here, but are there questions from other members of the committee?
I suppose comfortable is not the word, but we've already approved these projects. And this simply allows the city to go forward with them, basically. And although I actually have been a stick in the mud and not voted for this in the past, I don't see any reason not to vote for it now. It's already been approved. That train's left the station already, and I'm ready to vote in favor.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
I am comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion to give a favorable recommendation to O3020?
We do, and then I'll recognize Jody, but we do need a motion in a second.
Okay, I will make that motion.
All right, I'll second it.
We're home free.
Yeah. I also wanted to reiterate the ordinance also gives us the authority to refinance the debt out there right now.
Right.
Right now, we are looking into some opportunities for refinancing some of our older issues. We talked about different ways. We may put it out in an RFP to see if we can get a good offer on a refinancing. The rates are low right now, so we're hoping we can do that. But a lot of our debt it has been issued within the last few years or refunded within the last few years. So we're not paying super high rates as it is. So we're looking into those opportunities and would take advantages of them if it seems.
So that's similar to refinancing one's house.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It is the same thing, getting a lower rate, paying out less.
I would just offer that with the current administration, the current finance director, the city manager, the Office of Law, I'm feeling very comfortable with the way you do business, with the appropriate management things that you do. But I did dig into this. I went through it. I looked at particularly Exhibit 2. I noticed there are a lot of refinance issues there, and that was taking advantage of lower interest rates. And I went through about to page 16 of the ordinance, and then I got tired. But I feel very trusting and very comfortable recommending that the council approve this legislation at the next meeting.
So to clarify, Exhibit 2 just tells you all of the issues that we currently have outstanding that might be able to be refinanced. It's just the maximum amount that's out there that we could consider refinancing.
All right, any further questions or discussions? Otherwise, we have before us a recommendation to the City Council to vote favorably on 030-20. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. That ends the legislative portion of our Finance Committee agenda. City Manager, City Finance Director, are we going to get an update of the 2021 budget, or is that still in the works? I think I see David. Oh no, David is back. If it's not ready for prime time, I'm anxious to hear it, but obviously you need to have it ready for us when you're ready.
So I don't know, I'll invite the city manager to comment on this. We have gone through the revenues and developed revised estimates for the revenues. And there's going to be some stress there. And we're going to have to either figure out a way to fill that revenue shortfall with other sources or cut some expenses. And what I wanted to make sure is how much detail do we want to go into, because we don't have the full picture. I can't tell you exactly where FY20 ended yet. And that's one of the things that the city manager was looking for as a part of our report to you.
So is this something that we could defer to the next Finance Committee meeting? All right, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping, is that we'll have better information for the next meeting and at least refine the numbers that we have so you can see the revenue side at least.
Okay, committee, are you comfortable with that?
Fine with me.
Yeah. I'd rather have you be comfortable with it than to get it sooner. So that's fine. I did have a question, which I'm more than happy to also defer to the next Finance Committee meeting, but in thinking about the agenda, the scheduling for next year's financing process, I was reminded that I'm a little fuzzy on this one-time only fund. And so for the next committee meeting or some subsequent, there's no urgency, I'd really like to go back and be reminded of what the rule, how things fall into the one-time only fund, and then what are the rules for how they come out. I had the sense from the budget deliberations that it's money that's a little sticky, and so when we find a one-time only opportunity, we jump on it. I just need to understand that better, and throw this out to my colleagues on the committee. If you have the same ambiguity as I do about that fund, if you would agree that that would be a good agenda item for some near-term future Finance Committee meeting.
Fine with me.
I agree.
All right. Other than that, Finance Director, is there anything else we need to take up at this meeting?
No. As far as what we're doing, most of our effort now is to get the year closed for FY20, get the transactions in, and start preparing financial statements.
Do we have a completed budget binder? Budget book.
The operating budget book is almost done. Katie Connolly is still working on the final edits to that. She had a couple of final questions she was trying to clear up. So we're very close. It's drafted. We've all reviewed it. We're just kind of cleaning up.
And my favorite question, where are we with open government?
OpenGov, we're through what they would call their initial implementation stage. We haven't developed a complete document with the budget builder. We are using the workforce planning tool, public-facing modules. We trained about the public-facing modules, but we haven't developed any stories or what they call open town hall efforts on the software yet.
All right, thank you for that. I'm still anxious to see that. City Manager Gerald, I saw you raise your hand. I do have a request for some time with you, either after this meeting or sometime fairly soon, but did you have another issue you wanted to advise us of?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update. So I was late for the meeting this morning because I was at the State Board of Public Works hearing.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
Which included the POS, Program Open Space money for CRAB, for the Annapolis Adaptive Boating Center. They voted 3-0 in support of it.
Yay!
So that passed. So that's a really good news story for us. And
yeah.
So we're going to move forward with the purchase as well as the ordinance to get council approval for the long-term lease of that property to CRAB. So good news.
Good. And then we have, I think I heard in passing, an impending award of the contract. Is that something that is in the offing for Hillman and City Dock?
We're working in that direction. I wouldn't say it's imminent, but we're working on it.
Okay. All right. We're all anxious. And then the last question, that's another one of my perpetual questions, is where are we with the financing authority?
So we're still working through that. I'm not sure how much you've heard, so I guess I'll start sort of from the beginning about where we are. So the county has set up a large work group that includes Jody and I and Mike Johnson, Public Works, to work through what's going to become legislation for the Resilience Authority. They've set up 3 subcommittees. One is to look at the structure of the authority. One is to look at the financing and revenue sources, and one is looking at the projects. So we've had, I guess, a couple of the larger group meetings, and then each of the subcommittees has met and reported back to the larger committee. Then we have second subcommittee meetings scheduled. So I'm on the structure subcommittee, Jody's on the revenue, and as you would imagine, Mike Johnson's on the projects. Making good progress. What the county's goal is to have legislation ready to be introduced to the county and to the city by the end of the calendar year. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule because we're really starting from scratch. But that's what our target is, and that's what we're working towards.
When it's appropriate, your judgment, obviously, could you send out an update to the council? I think there's various degrees of interest, but this is going to be a very important new adventure, and I think it's certainly very germane to the city council to be sort of up to speed on what's going on. And it sounds like we have 3 sterling members from the city to be on those subcommittees. So, other questions from the committee before we adjourn?
I do have a question for Director or Manager Gerald. When are we going to introduce the council to the concept of budget planning and the retreat or meeting or whatever we're going to be calling it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a resolution that Jacqueline has written, putting together the schedule that we all talked about. I think Mike has reviewed that. City Attorney Lyle has reviewed that and had some comments. So I'm not sure if that was sent to you, but I will send that legislation, that resolution to you to make sure that you're comfortable with it. And if so, then we'll push it ahead to hear it on the 14th, which will allow the full council to discuss that proposed schedule.
Great.
I think we should come up with a date or date option so that everyone can get it on their calendars well in advance.
Okay. Yep. Lynn and I talked about that earlier this week, that we need to start working on getting on all the logistics involved with that. So I'm thinking probably either this second weekend or third weekend of October, because we had talked about doing that on Saturday. So we'll look at that initially and reach out and see what conference rooms are available or meeting rooms. We'll start with St. John's, and then there's other places that we could do it potentially if that's not available. But we'll get started with that and then circle back and with the date.
Okay, and I know I asked you this question a couple days ago, but I have to ask it again. Community grant award letters. When can the nonprofits expect to get those?
I see that the assistant city manager has just went off of mute, so I think she's going to respond.
Oh, okay. Did she hear my question?
I can't hear her. Can't hear her. She's talking.
And they will be completed today, the award letters, and then I'll start to work with Ashley on the grant agreements.
Excellent.
So may I ask, when will they get, are there payments in quarterly increments? Yes. We're 2 months in, so it sounds like if it's quarterly, they should be getting checks next month or this month.
Well, the payments come in quarterly increments, and it is they report, and the reports are due for the quarter, and then once we get the reports, then we submit the reports for payment.
Okay. Well, I would hope that we could expedite it since we are like 2 months behind in getting their award letters to them. For those who count on our funding, it's putting them in a difficult situation. So thank you.
David and Mike, could I have a very quick word with you after the end of this meeting? Thank you.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Very good meeting. Thank you, everyone.